Mom, I'm having a baby. What? What are you talking about? I'm pregnant. I'm going to have this baby. I stood there stunned, unable to say anything. A dark cloud had suddenly settled over our family, which I had prided myself on as an ordinary but happy family that could be found anywhere. In fact, even before this, our house had begun to creak little by little. Mom, you don't understand. Why do you say that? I'm just saying that we should think about it together. We have this kind of exchange every day. My name is Julia, and I am 45 years old and work part-time. My husband is also 45 and works as a staff member in a music office. His job is mainly stage management and on-site work at concerts. Because of this, he is able to listen to concerts of famous artists from the seats reserved for related parties, and he is also able to easily obtain tickets that would have been difficult to get. Since she was a child, my daughter, Cam, has been saying that she wants to be a singer in the future, which is probably because she had been going to these concerts from a young age. At first, my husband and I took this childish dream lightly, but after witnessing Cam's enthusiasm, we decided to support her as much as possible. Fortunately, through my husband's business connections, we were able to get her voice training lessons from a famous teacher. Even without parental bias, my daughter was very talented and she became a rising topic among people in the industry. However, as Cam became a junior high school student and had to start thinking seriously about her career path, conflicts of opinion began to arise within the family. I'm not saying you should give up on becoming a singer. I'm just saying you should go to high school like everyone else. If I do what everyone else does, I'll just end up living the same life as everyone else. I want to be a singer, so what's the point of studying math and stuff? I thought it would be good to pursue a career in music, but that it would be better to go on to a regular high school while still taking lessons in case she wanted to do something else along the way or gave up on her dream if it did not come true. To my surprise, even my husband was very much against this idea. In this day and age, going to high school isn't necessary. Oh yes, some of my classmates might not go on to higher education. If she doesn't want to study, shouldn't she use that time to take on her dreams of becoming a singer? I had assumed that she would at least go to high school, but their ideas were completely different from my common sense. When my husband decided to make a full-fledged pitch for Cam's professional debut instead of having her go to high school, my daughter also added that if she had time to go to school to study, she wanted to practice singing and do more voice training. Up to this point, I had always let my daughter do what she wanted to do, but this time I could not simply agree with this idea. One of these reasons was that I myself have had experiences in music, so I knew how demanding and frustrating the industry could be. I had intended to ensure that my daughter would not have to go through these same hardships, but in the end, she did not accept my wishes. My husband originally entered an industry that had nothing to do with music, but he could not suppress his passion for music, which led to his current job. He says Cam has talent and he wants to support her all the way. I am not saying that I completely deny my husband's feelings, but this choice became a major turning point for our family. While other children of the same age as Cam were beginning to study for entrance exams in earnest, my daughter and my husband began to devote their time and energy to marketing activities. At that time, the two had been really lively. My throat feels really good today, Dad. I'm sure I'll make a great impression. Oh, really? The place we're going to today is where they do some pretty big projects. Who knows, you might get the job right away. Yes, and lately I've been enjoying singing a lot more than I used to. I'm sure that's because you're carving your own path. I could only watch them without being able to join in their conversations. My daughter was certainly more animated and energetic in her lessons, and even with my biased view as her mother, I could feel that her singing was improving and her dream of making a debut was becoming more realistic than before. The relationship between my daughter and my husband was also surprisingly good for a family with an adolescent. In fact, some of our neighbors told me how envious they were of our lovely family. As I spent those days, I gradually came to accept my daughter's choice, which I had been so opposed to. However, in the real world, things don't always work out as you want them to. There are more than plenty of children who can sing well. While my daughter was busy with her lessons, there were children who quickly won over their debuts on audition shows broadcasted on TV. If you look at social networking sites, you will find children around the same age as my daughter distributing their songs and receiving worldwide recognition. Unless she has something unique, it is practically impossible for a 14-year-old to be successful. I could see that both my daughter and my husband, who are also particularly sensitive, quickly became depressed. I couldn't bear to see them in this state, so I tried to comfort them. Why don't you take it a little easier? You don't have to be in such a hurry, you know. I don't want you to say anything. Don't tell me what to do, Mom. I'm just worried about you. About what? You're not the one who always accompanies me to my lessons, Dad is. All my patience up to that point was disregarded with just this one sentence. She had no idea how much I had been worrying about her and cheering her on from the shadows so that I wouldn't disturb her. At that moment, I think I was so distraught that I didn't know what I was talking about. The next thing I knew, I was being pinned down by my husband. Just keep your mouth shut. You stay out of our business. What do you mean, we? Am I not family to you too? Who makes sure you have a warm meal after you come home from lessons? I do appreciate that. But don't try to interfere with our business. Being told off by not only my daughter but even my husband, there was no place left for me in our household. From then on, I just watched from afar what they were doing. Up till then, when my daughter's lessons were running late, I would pick her up instead of my husband. The day of the first lesson after this incident, I had been getting ready to pick my daughter up as usual, when I received a phone call from my husband. I'll pick Cam up today. You stay at home. Oh, okay. I'll let you handle it. It was not unusual for my husband to offer to pick her up himself, and after what had happened the other day, I was under the impression that he was going to have a talk with my daughter about what had happened the other day. However, even after hours there was no sign of them returning. At first I thought they were going somewhere to have dinner, but it was too late for that. There was no response when I called my husband or sent a message to my daughter. Just as I was considering reporting to the police if there was no sign of them in an hour, my phone rang. It was a message from my husband which said, "We've decided to stay overnight for today." That was it. I was relieved for the moment, but my next question immediately came to mind. Why on earth would they need to stay overnight? I messaged him, asked about it, and he immediately replied. Cam was offered a special lesson. Although I was not happy about it, I did not pursue it further, partly because I thought that everything would be fine since my husband was with Cam. The morning arrived with me hardly getting any sleep. I don't even remember how many times I had checked my phone for any messages that day. In the early afternoon, my husband and daughter returned home. They were obviously tired, so I suppressed my desire to question them. My daughter went to her room to get a change of clothes, as she wanted to take a bath. I could only watch her, since she clearly didn't seem like she was going to tell me anything. While my daughter was taking a bath, I tried to ask my husband what had happened, but he too had locked himself in his room and I could only hear him talking on the phone inside. Feeling left out yet again, I did something that I would never do normally. I went into my daughter's room and looked for any differences from when she had left yesterday. I looked in her desk, in her closet, and even in the pocket of her jacket, which she had left undressed. Relieved to find nothing out of the ordinary, I finally opened the bag that had been tossed on the floor. Perhaps I had a hunch. Inside, I found a condom. Nowadays it is not surprising that junior high school students have condoms. Even in my time, kids who were known to be grown up or mature kept a condom in their wallets. However, it was one thing to hear, and another thing to see my daughter having one with my very own eyes. Especially since this was right after what happened yesterday. It seemed too much to be a coincidence. I pondered if I should ask her myself after she finished bathing, or if I should ask my husband if he knew anything about this. While I was thinking about this, I heard my daughter get out of the bath. For the time being, I put the bag back in its place and left her room. The two of them had no way of knowing that I had done such a thing, and they didn't seem to notice anything. I forced myself to accept the fact that this was just the kind of thing that happens when you have an adolescent daughter, and I spent the rest of my day acting normally. As before, I remained left out, but I concentrated on caring for my family while watching my husband and daughter work toward their dreams. 3 months later, my daughter made an extraordinary confession to me. I could only be bewildered by the events that had suddenly befallen me. "I'm sorry, Mom." With that, my daughter looked down. I had no idea what she was talking about, so all I could do was rub her back, trying to comfort her. At the time, I had thought it was something as simple as a bad test score or a call from the school. "What's the matter? This isn't like you. Go ahead, try telling me." Seeing my daughter stuttering, I began to realize that this was more than just something simple. "Mom, I have a baby." I had no idea what she meant. When I was finally able to speak, my words sounded stupid. "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" "I'm pregnant. I'm going to have this baby." I forced myself to take in her words and the situation as she continued speaking. "Just so you know, I'm not going to have an abortion. Do you even know what you're talking about? Who got you pregnant? I don't want to tell you. You don't want to tell me. What are you going to do then? And how did you even know you're pregnant?" "I found out with a pregnancy test. I took it in the school bathroom. All of what I had hoped I had up till that point were dashed to pieces. Kids today are so much more mature than when I was her age. You can't just have a baby because you want to. The school will know, the neighbors will know, and you'll have to give up your dreams." My daughter had a look on her face that I had never seen before. It was neither anger nor sadness, but almost like a mixture of pity and contempt. I knew you were going to say something like that. I didn't expect anything anyways, so I don't care. I'm going to have the baby. That's all." After saying this, she locked herself in her room. Still unable to accept this sudden change, I went to the kitchen to prepare for my husband, who was about to come home. It was one of those days when my husband was late getting home. As I served dinner to my husband when he finally got home, I waited for the right moment to broach the subject. He listened to me with a serious face. Ironically, it was the first time in a long time that my husband and I had met face to face, and I felt ashamed that this out of all things had to be the thing we talked about. Couldn't it be that Cam is mistaken? Can't you tell, you're a woman too, right? I thought so, too, but from the looks of it, I think it's true. As I expected, my husband was surprised and said with a somewhat blank expression that he needed to think about future plans. I could see that my husband, who had been there along Cam chasing her dreams of being a singer, was much more devastated at the news of his daughter, who was still a junior high school student, being pregnant, even more shocked than me. However, no matter how many times I urged him, her husband wouldn't talk to our daughter about this, and I seemed to be the only one worried. I decided that I had no choice but to take her daughter to the hospital, even if I had to use force. But my daughter objected. "You might say something unnecessary to my teacher, so I've decided to go with Dad on his day off. Wouldn't it be easier to discuss this with another woman instead?" "It's fine, I'll go with Dad." After saying that, my daughter stopped talking to me. I had no choice but to ask my husband to take her to see a doctor. About a week after announcing the pregnancy, my husband and my daughter finally headed to the hospital. Seeing that, I was relieved and headed to work. Work ended in the early evening, so I went shopping for dinner for 3 people, then headed home. However, when I arrived home, the room was pitch black. My husband was supposed to be off work. I started preparing dinner, thinking that maybe they had a schedule that I didn't know about. At 7 p.m., my daughter finally came home. "How was the hospital? Wasn't Dad with you?" There was no response from Cam, and there was something strange about her behavior. No matter how kindly I asked her, she wouldn't say anything, just eating her dinner in silence, then quickly retiring to her room. I thought something might have happened at the hospital, but I didn't delve into her daughter right then, thinking I'd ask my husband later. But no matter how long I waited, my husband didn't come home. Worried, I contacted my husband, but got no answer. I also contacted his workplace, but the reply was that he was off today and was not at work. I noticed my husband's items were fewer than usual, and when I checked the wardrobe, there was indeed a huge decrease in his possessions. My husband seemed to have left home with careful preparations. I hurriedly opened the door to my daughter's room. "Hey, do you know where Dad went? I can't find any of his clothes." My daughter didn't even try to hide her annoyance at having the door suddenly opened. "I don't know. He must have gone somewhere for a change of scenery." After answering that, she closed the door with a loud bang. It was strange that my daughter, who was so attached to my husband, was so indifferent, and her sudden change in behavior must have had something to do with his disappearance. However, no matter how many times I called, my phone calls were not answered and my text messages were not marked as read. I also found out that my husband had applied for leave from the company. 3 days have passed since my husband went missing, and no information was heard from my daughter. Surprisingly, this time my daughter was gone too. My daughter's disappearance was an incomparable shock compared to my husband's. I spent my days asking myself why my daughter also left, and whether there was something wrong with me. Of course, I reported it to the police. They never did a full-fledged investigation, saying that my daughter was probably with my husband and that she was fine. Eventually, I received a phone call from my husband. Cam and I are renting a monthly apartment and using it as a temporary home. I carried out this plan because Cam told me that she didn't want to be with you until she gave birth. But don't worry, I will take good care of Cam. After saying that, he hung up without waiting for my response. My husband gave in to my daughter's selfishness and decided to live separately until she gave birth. That's when the truly terrifying events began. After my husband suddenly announced his separation, neither husband or daughter showed up despite several calls. Their whereabouts were unknown, and my daughter did not go to school. I couldn't do anything and was anxious until the day my daughter gave birth. It was strange since despite what had happened, I was starting to feel just a little excited for the birth of my grandchild. And finally, the day came. It's been a while since I received a message from my daughter. The moment I saw my daughter's name on my phone, my heart skipped a beat. When I gingerly opened the message, there was an attached message saying, "She was born safely," and a photo. The photo showed my daughter with my husband and a baby. Up to that point, it was nothing but a picture of a happy family, but there was something very strange about the photo. The baby in my daughter's arms had unnaturally dark hair, and its eyes were wide open and lifeless. Its skin was smooth and had a texture that made it hard to believe that it was a living thing. I enlarged the photo and realized something. It was a delicately made doll called a reborn doll. My daughter wasn't pregnant and my husband knew it and lied to me. Why on earth did he need to do that? I immediately called my husband. There was no response, as there had been for months. False birth due to daughter's false pregnancy report. The events unfolded so rapidly that I could not accept that what was happening to me was real. A few days later, when I returned home from work, a light was on in the living room. I can also hear the voices of my husband and daughter from inside. Even though it was my home, I opened the door with trepidation and met my husband's eyes. "Welcome back." "I'm home." "Welcome back too." "I'm home." Even though it's been a long time since we met again, the conversation doesn't seem to go anywhere. Unable to bear the awkward silence, I was about to leave when I caught sight of something out of my field of vision. I've looked back at it in photos so many times. It was placed casually on the sofa. I couldn't just leave it like this, so I mustered up the courage to ask. "Hey, what the hell is that?" My husband and daughter looked at each other. That was the signal. I heard my daughter close the door, and then my husband began to speak slowly. It was so shocking that it was hard to believe. I've said before that in order to make Cam's debut, she's been in contact with a reasonably powerful producer she's known for a long time. Yes, I heard. He's been a tough one to get to. From the way my husband spoke and the look on his face, I knew it wasn't a simple matter. Even though he said he was going to debut Cam, he just can't seem to make a move. There's a lot of preparation to be done, right? No, his name is Dalton, and he's trying to take advantage of us by threatening her debut. After that, just thinking about what my husband told me now makes me feel nauseous. Her husband decided to fake that Dalton and Cam had a child in order to threaten Dalton and seize the opportunity to make Cam's debut. The night my husband and daughter didn't come home was the day it was carried out. My husband called Dalton to a room in a city hotel and left him alone with my daughter. The condom that came out of my daughter's bag that day must have been the remains of the props she had prepared at that time. Of course, Dalton, with his sense and social status, did not make any mistakes. But my husband threatened Dalton with a video of him entering a hotel room. Dalton adamantly refused to give in. There's no proof, and of course he never laid a finger on Cam in the first place. But my husband had been one step ahead. He used a pregnancy disguising item he found on an overseas website to make his daughter's belly look larger, and sent the photo to Dalton. Dalton insisted on his innocence, so my husband went to his last resort. That was the reborn doll. He used a reborn doll, which from a distance was indistinguishable from a human baby, and lied about his daughter giving birth. Dalton panicked. Of course he would. He was shown everything from a pregnancy story he had no recollection of to a baby Cam said was his. It seems that Dalton gave up at that point. It would have been easier to use his industry connections to let Cam debut instead of letting things like this continue. My daughter may also have been the victim of a fake pregnancy staged by my husband under pressure to make her debut. She really thought she was pregnant. I have heard of phantom pregnancies, but maybe we could call this a brainwashed pregnancy. My husband made sure that my daughter had no contact with the outside world while they lived in a monthly apartment. This is because the brainwashing may come undone in an unexpected moment. It is true that my daughter may also be a victim. However, the fact remains that she deceived me without questioning the meaning of my husband's plan. I had no idea that such a thing was going on, and I was the only one being swayed by it. After we finished talking, my husband called for Cam. I don't even remember how long it's been since I've seen my daughter, and she looks calm for the first time in a while. Mom, I'm sorry. Julia, I'm sorry, but now Cam can finally make her debut. This is a dream come true for all three of us as a family. What are you guys talking about? A family of three, after all this. They probably thought that no matter what they did, would silently accept them. I grabbed the doll that had been thrown on the sofa and pressed it against my husband's chest. My husband was stunned and subconsciously grabbed the doll, as if he didn't understand why. From now on, the three of you should live together in harmony. I'm looking forward to your debut. With that said, I left the house. Later, I got Dalton's contact information through someone I knew at the same company as my husband. My husband has caused you a great deal of trouble. I have a proposal regarding this matter. What is it with your husband? Your daughter is also nuts. You're trying to take advantage of me. I'm a victim too. I want to bury my husband socially, and I wonder if I can use your help. Dalton was a bit harsh at first, but he soon accepted my suggestion. It's true that I won't be truly satisfied unless I take away his place. That's right. My plan really requires your cooperation. Okay, I'll try to talk to the people around me. My wife is a police officer. Thank you. Leave it to me. How many years do you think I've been in this business? I'll make that pay. After I got off the phone with Dalton, I ran straight to the police station and told them what had happened. The police seemed to be taking the crime of my husband, who tried to brainwash a minor for his own benefit. At the request of a lawyer, I started divorce proceedings. Given the circumstances, it seems that the division of assets will be advantageous to me. My husband called me immediately after hearing from the lawyer. Why do I have to go through this? I did it for you and Cam. Do you have any idea how I felt? You both treated me like a nuisance. I endured it. But after hearing things like that, I can't do it anymore. Oh, hey, wait. I'm going to give the phone to Cam. Don't hang up yet. Mom, please come back. It's too late to regret it now. I'll live alone as I please. I'm finally free. Hey, please. I've already signed the divorce papers, so I'll leave you alone. Well then, goodbye. My husband and daughter were shouting something on the phone, but I didn't hear them. As Dalton did on the phone, he also informed the music industry about this incident. There are many people in the music industry who admire Dalton, and even if he is spared a prison sentence, there is little chance that my husband will be able to reintegrate into society in his former industry. I'm looking forward to seeing how this middle-aged man, who has done nothing but music up to this point, will fall to his demise.